Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be a brand new series where we go in and spectate randoms on Apex Legends. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with Diamond rank, because I think it's probably the best way to teach a lot of players. And Diamond players do a lot of really smart plays, and sometimes they don't play very smart at all, which is okay, because that's why we're here to learn and why we're here to educate. I made sure to put anonymous mode. What I'm going to do is I'm going to queue in. I'm not going to agree with the team's game that I'm with, but I'm going to commentate over the gameplay, and hopefully we get eliminated quickly. And maybe we'll hot drop. That's the hope. I actually hope that we hot drop so then I can spectate a team all the way till the very end. And we're going to do this with 2 rounds. Let's get into it. Okay, we are in Diamond rank. And let's see what our team does. They picked an interesting comp. I'm going to drop hot. Not to grief their game, but I mean, if this turns out to be a dub, then it turns out to be a dub. We can highlight what works, what went right, and what went wrong. And let's just break it down. Let's talk through it. So our comp, our Revenant is definitely going to be the pusher of the group. Bangler's also an aggressor. I'm the anchor, playing Watson. Watson's been really great in King's Canyon because she was definitely designed for it, but she's great at hunkering down and holding positioning. So if we happen to lose off drop, which I don't think a team actually landed here with us, this is a safe drop. So what I can teach here in the meantime is how you loot up quickly and rotate. So these are good teammates already pinging stuff. I'm going to grab this for our Revenant so we can push. This would be a really smart, which is why I dropped here with the Revenant, because it's a really smart push, because then he gets his ultimate right away, and then we can make an immediate play right away. This is also a good drop point because we have Crafter. So Crafter is pretty solid, just to have right off the rip, just so you can have materials, so you can grab yourself either a flatline, a different gun, anything of that nature, just to kind of help you out in a gunfight. So there's the plus sides to that. So we might actually craft ourselves a longbow, because I have the R99 for close range, so I should be okay. So I don't really craft a longbow. I haven't crafted a longbow much this season. We might run it for the meme so I can just kind of talk through things. So as you keep going, the biggest thing is just to make sure you go through your loot rotation and that you're always doing something, that you are always having a purpose and an action, whether it's grabbing materials, rotating, moving around, all of those things. So right now I'm trying to rotate to get materials so I can craft a longbow, and then I'm gonna craft some batteries. I'm gonna go all the way back over here, and the zone is actually close by, so we could rotate over to capacitor, which is definitely a plus. Our armor situation isn't great, but we definitely should go do some poke damage so we can have that. I don't have a bag, unfortunately. I might have missed a bag. Somebody in the comment section can tell me if I happen to miss a bag somewhere. I don't think I saw one. And I'm going to run away over here for just a second, and I know I took up those slots, so I'm going to go back because I don't want to frustrate this poor person when they're trying to craft too. So I'm going to grab those 2 things. I'm going to drop my heavy ammo right there so they can craft. I'm going to go look for a bag. I haven't really looted these buildings right here, so I'm just going to do a quick look. And there's also a blue here, so when you're with your teammates, just make sure you ping stuff for your teammates because they actually might need it. And there's actually another blue in here, so I'm going to ping that for my teammate here, make sure that they are aware that's there. And now I have my nice little longbow, and we are ready to rock and roll. So the downside is you definitely want to play with your teammates. If they're not aggressive, then you just kind of hold tight and wait with them. I know it's not the most ideal and not the most fun, but sometimes it's what you need to do just to play patiently with them. So that's what we're going to do right now. So this lobby is fortunately actually very slow, which means that everyone's playing pretty passive. Everyone landed pretty safe, oddly. People have been eliminated, 2 squads to be specific, and there is a fight in progress. So we're going to rotate in and see what we can do and what damage we can get in. So let's go and rotate in, and let's see what happens. Ideally want to fight a third party, but listen, we have the jump. We have blue armors. This isn't bad, and we do want to level them up. So that's important. You don't want to be stuck with blue armors at the very end of the game. It's going to be not so positive. So we got ourselves some sights. Remember, the biggest thing I mentioned on rotation is don't window shop. I know exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a stock, and I'm just looking for attachments, which I found. Maybe a little bit more ammo. I'm actually going to opt for ammo instead of grenades. I'm just going to anchor instead. It's probably not always the wisest choice, but it's a choice I'm making in the moment now. So our team is actually playing pretty smart. They're playing together, which is pretty solid. We're moving around. Unfortunately, there just wasn't any teams. Usually rig is pretty hot, but not today. Doesn't seem to be very hot. We don't have anybody who can scan beacon. That's unfortunate. So we can just kind of chill here for the time being. I'm definitely playing a little aggressive. So somebody did rotate through here. So we just need to be careful. Make sure I don't get caught out of position. Here's some shots over here. I'm going to ping it for my teammates to run over. I'll wait for them for just a second. Okay, looks like they're rotating in. I hear an Ashult that went over to the left. So I'm just going to be a little cautious and a little aware. And if we get eliminated, it's okay, because that's the whole point. I was hoping just more or less to spectate. So let's see if this fight actually works out. Holding just for a second, trying to look for some information. There is the ultimate. Revenant wants to make a push, so we'll make a push. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put Jen right here, just in case when we do push back, in case it would decide to nade us. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to climb on the back side of the building and try to go for a flank instead, so we're not all just dogpiling one side. Gibby, for some reason, decided to run in. There's 2 people here, and hopefully they're flanking in pretty aggressively. Unfortunately, they're not, so I need to destroy this as fast as possible. So I'm just going to push in, so that sends me back, because I do not want to be caught out there without my teammates. So it looks like one of my teammates did knock one, which is good. There's still one on the second floor. I'm going to try to push up at the bottom still. I know there's a lot of gas, and there's another team, so I need to be very careful. I'm going to fence them in. I'm going to fence out right here. I'm just going to play a little patiently. I'm going to come up and help my teammates. Realistically, we need to back up and run, but I'll be here with my teammates in the meantime, and I'll push forward. Caustic is literally one. I'm dead, and let's spectate the team. So, like I was commenting earlier, we probably should not have stayed within that, but that's perfectly fine because now we get to spectate, which is the whole point of this. The other team got eliminated and they cleaned up, and this team played it very well because they played it patiently and they played it right. So this is perfect. I think this is great. This is awesome. Okay, I've never been so happy to be squad wiped in my whole entire life. But I knew it wasn't a smart play, but listen, my teammates, I'm not going to just run and go rat. This is the whole purpose of this video. But us, by staying in that fight for too long, when we got sent back and there was caustic gas and there was another team on the other side, realistically what I should have done is I should have called for my teammates to back up and kind of taken the IGL role. They just kind of kept full sending it, and I was so close to knocking that caustic, which would have turned the tide of the fight. Unfortunately, this other team would have pushed in right afterwards, and we still would have lost. It would have definitely been a hard way to counter. So this team right now, when we look at the zone, they have pretty good zone. Nobody's watching. This is the downside. If they were in, let's say, master or pred lobbies, they are taking way too long to loot. Nobody's anchoring up top. If 2 people should be looting, and this Wraith has not also selled as well. I thought I put on the thing where it was anonymous, but for some reason it's still showing up. Let's see here if we can hide that for a second. Well, it's for some reason their names are still showing up. It's fine. I forget that it still shows it. So if they're watching, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to give some tips and advice for everybody. It kind of is what it is. But you know what? It's all positive. We're all learning. I mean, I just got wiped there. It's not a big deal. But this Wraith is definitely taking too long to heal up, which is perfectly fine. It's okay. But realistically, if this was a Masters and Predator lobby, they would have gotten rolled up on. So what they can do is they could third this, or they could go for rotation, but one person needs to anchor and make a decision. They're taking quite a bit of time to make a decision, and those seconds right there are the difference. And for some reason, the Wraith still doesn't know that she's not healed up, which can be a pretty big cost to the fight. So she now realizes she needs to heal up, but it's going to pull her away from the fight. So we got 2 individuals. Or we got all 3 of them pushing in, but one of them isn't fully healed, so they may not be able to push all together. So they get caught up position here. The bubble is there. They need to back up. There's no reason to push this. If they push this, this is going to cost them the fight. There's a utility from the Horizon. Great utility to try to keep them out of dodge, and that does save the team. So great utility, but the downside, the Horizon needed to queue up immediately once she slowed them down to get out, and unfortunately that is really what's going to cause the team to get eliminated here. The Wraith needs to port. If she has a port, if it's available, it has to port out her teammate, because you need to go for the res and the reset as fast as possible. Even though they got a knock, it's good to go for the reset. And they're holding down to it, so this is a smart play technically, as long as a Pathfinder, but the Pathfinder is taking an off angle, but not necessarily there in the fight quite yet. And there's a bit of damage, and perfect because they have it right there. Now they can isolate, and now they have a 2v1 scenario. So this is a really positive, but there's the other team that always shows up. This is the issue with Kings Canyon, and why I recommended going for the port instead of getting greedy for the kills. So they have KP, but and there's the port. It's there, but realistically the port could have been there to begin with, because sometimes it's not always best to get greedy unless you know you can clutch it out within, let's say, 5 to 10 seconds. Again, this can be personal preference of whether you think it's going to work or not, but this team, if they are aggro, is going to push it, and unfortunately they are, and there you go. That's just kind of my point, is that realistically the only thing this Pathfinder can do is just wait. Unfortunately, there's no reason necessarily to take too many shots, because while, yeah, you might be able to get a knock and grief, it seems like there's 2 teams here. Now he's getting pushed, and he's got 4 KP. They could have ratted and backed up, but unfortunately that option is no longer available, and we'll see if they manage to knock him out or not, and they do. So that's my point. Always don't hesitate to use utility to kind of duck and weave. There's never necessarily a downside to doing it, and this team definitely now commands a lot of presence. And just assume that when you're in a fight, if you don't clean it up fast enough, that there's going to be a third party. Always don't window shop. Make sure to heal up. Gibraltar has not used flush heals to heal up. Definitely taking a bit of time looting, standing still. If we count it, this is like 1, you know, 2, 3, 4. You know, the clock is ticking, and if that takes that amount of time to loot, then if this was Master or Pred, granted this is Diamond, if you want to become a better Diamond player, cut down on this downtime. Know what you're shopping for. Let's see, is anybody anchoring? Not a single person is looking for a third party or anchoring right now. Everyone has kind of got their head down, and they're all separated. Right now, Gibraltar could potentially get run up on. The Rampart hasn't necessarily put up any walls or is anchoring quite yet. They are located in the building together, but the Gibraltar, there we go, finally has an anchor and is holding. Now, whenever you're holding, you don't necessarily want to stand out right out in the open like you're seeing right here, because the downside of doing that is that you're going to be a free shot. You want to make your hitboxes, there we go, as small as possible. This is much better to hold, because imagine they looked over and they had a Kraber and they hit him, and then he takes a second to climb down, and at that point, well, what else are you going to do, right? That's definitely going to be a hard struggle. So that's some more tips and advice. And so the teammate is all playing together. This is a smart play because you can be able to gate them out. But the question is, does Octane need this extra jump pad? Because they just gave up their positioning. And granted, they already took shots, but he is standing here for quite a bit. Remember, when you're covering and you're holding, make sure you have angles and that you're waiting. So I guess what he's doing is he's trying to communicate to a squad to rotate and move. But nonetheless, that can be done with pings. He's taking shots instead, which is not necessarily the smartest thing, but at least he got his team to move. So kudos to him for getting the team to move. But remember, if you take shots, what's the first thing that you're going to see? Unfortunately, is that, remember, if you hold height like this and you're taking an angle, make sure to make your hitbox small. That's going to be a reoccurring theme. If you're going to hold up there, their hitbox is infinitely smaller. If this was a higher tier lobby, this guy should have been beamed for all intents and purposes. And he is definitely full sending this. So there's a lot of confidence. So kudos to the confidence on this play. But it's also what kind of, like, immediately, if they were any more confident, they can turn and shoot. So nice shots by this guy. Kudos to the aim and the confidence as well. But I make this mistake a lot, and I guarantee a lot of you make it as well. Just make sure whenever you are full sending something and holding an aggro position that you have a fallback plan, because sometimes you never know who's on the other side who's just going to absolutely destroy you and wreck you. And then what if that team happened to have a jump pad and counteract that? Remember, this is a game of chess. A game of chess, and that's very, very important whenever in terms of tips and advice. So we look at the zone. They have a very good anchor, but they want to hold, let's say, the building right over there around Lab's side, so they have a better anchor. It looks like somebody already took that spot, so they need to find an anchor on a different spot. The problem right now is they're kind of floating. At any moment, they could get shot in the back. This guy is very confident with his shot, so he's definitely doing a lot of damage with the team, and he is kill leader, and he's doing a whole lot with this power play that he's got. Just don't let your confidence go to your head. But Octane is clearly trying to make an opening, and with his team getting cracked, he just needs to be sure to hold as much as possible. So he's definitely trying to take the IGL status, and of course you're asking the question, what is IGL? That is in-game lead. So somebody who's going to make the comms and shots. So he's trying to make essentially a play for his teammates to help them out to do something. And that's just kind of the unfortunate downside effect of what we're seeing. So at least he managed to move up. Definitely having these buildings is going to be a power play. The zone may not necessarily end here. It most likely might end around the choke spot, but it's not bad to anchor. Unless you just want to keep pushing. And if you keep pushing, just continue to make plays. It's not a downside. But it's one of those things that practice how you play. Make sure your team is with you. And here they go. They might actually get caught out of position, potentially. One is late. So I think what they're trying to do is he's trying to get the jump and surprise them around the corner. But unfortunately, he might actually get caught out here. His teammates are taking way too much damage, but he hasn't done enough. I understand the play, but the downside is he's sacrificing his teammates. He's going to get shot in the left. He needs to rotate out, and there it is. There it is. I understand the play, but anchoring is going to be much better, and I get what the idea was there to kind of throw them off, but the unfortunate part is that it doesn't always work out that way. This team is definitely holding zone. Zone 3 is not one to mess with, and they're late to rotation. So that team was just anchored on the other side over there, and they need to be careful because they're a duo squad, and they're going to have to pretty much rat this out and play patiently and wait for the other two teams to fight before they push in. So That's just the unfortunate gamble. The Octane luckily tried to make the in-game lead. I did mention on the last play the reason why it didn't work is because not all of them are ratting, and they just did so much damage that the other team just decided to push. The Octane had fantastic aim, had the right idea, but sometimes anchoring in the off-center position might be smarter and the better play overall. So what this team needs to do as a duo squad, I know they're crafting to gather some materials, is they need to hold presence, and honestly they should go to zone and book it, because I don't think they're going to be allowed to kind of just hold this area. If they are fighting, which I think they are right now, and they do have beacon to potentially res, so that's what they're crafting there, so solid play, but they need to do it now. They have a minute to do it, and if there's any time that they're going to do it, they either need to do it in zone, or they need to push for a potential play here. One or the other. It's very tough to know which one they want to do, just as long as they're communicating and talking together. They have some pretty decent KP, though. So at least, you know, top 3. Remember, top 5 is always the goal. So the higher you go in terms of top 5, that's always going to be the smarter play and the better tips that one can provide in terms of gameplay. Now, when you're putting your respawn beacon, the smarter thing would be to do is put it behind cover. Right now, this is very much out in the open, so they're literally right next to the care package. And I know the incentive is to give it to the person that they're going to res, but when you hear the Valk ult up in the air, it's such a risky play, and you're gonna see it pretty much pan out this way. And now they're kind of stuck in the middle. Some solid spray damage, but the Bangalore is very separate from her teammate at the moment, and they're pretty much playing just 1v1s. They needed to play together and on top of each other. So when we see it just looks like a bunch of isolated 1v1s. Remember how I mentioned you can always tell if a team is isolated and they'll act upon that isolated moment. So even though they res, unfortunately their Ash didn't even go for the Spitfire. So that play may not even have worked in their favor, and they should have gone maybe further back. So now they're really overwhelmed right now, and the zone 4 is definitely going to hit extremely hard. So they have to gamble and hope that the other team just doesn't focus them. But unfortunately they do, which is going to be the downside to their game here. But if they maybe took the further opposite end and then played it a little bit more patiently, one person can drop a gun for their teammate, wait for them to fight to go in so they're not the sandwich. The problem is when the Valk ult came through, it's going to die to zone, unfortunately. That pressure that we talked about. And this team now is going to get griefed and lose because the zone is about to put pressure. They're about to go down. Zone 4 really, really trucks. The heat shield is not enough time, really, to really do much of anything. They're still going to go potentially down here. It's going to put a lot of pressure. And while they did get a Spitfire, it's just... It just pretty much hands it... Oh, it's actually Devotion. Look at that. So a lot of damage. Actually, the Valkyrie did manage to do a lot of damage, but they're still playing separate. If you're going to push, remember to push with your teammate and be very self-aware of what they're going to do. Even if it's going to lose, like you saw me as a Watson earlier, there's a potential that we could have won that, but always just go for the play. Just go for it, and then see what happens, even if it feels like it's the wrong play. So this goes to the other squad. We saw quite a bit of interesting plays. Remember, go further into zone if you're going to go further into zone. If you're going to commit to a fight, commit to a fight. Don't hesitate. Stick together. If you see your team pushes in, push in with them. Even if it's a mistake, because sometimes you might be able to make a play. Unless your goal is to leave and go rat, then you're going to have to just go with the option of ratting and leaving your team. Right? So that's the unfortunate play, unfortunately. And yeah, let's get into the next game. Let's queue up again. That was very interesting. Hopefully this is educational for you guys. Alright, here we go for the next round. This one's going to go before the other round. So I know that you guys are watching this series. So what happened, and you will watch the other one, is that the other one I actually survived a lot longer. I'm hoping in this round that maybe the team will make a mistake and I will do the best I can. But I don't... The hard part about recording this is I don't want to hard grief any team that's grinding ranked. I am giving it my all. At the same time, I do want to spectate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass them Jump Master. I'm going to let them choose their own fate. So if we happen to land hot, we land hot. It seems like everyone has been dropping pretty safe, so they happen to have Jump Master. That's perfectly fine. Because even if I were to jump off the map at this point, I'd be spectating my own teammates, and I don't want them to go for my banner. Okay, here we go. Looks like we're landing spot at Lake. We do have one team with us, so you got to be very secure in where you're going to drop and what you're going to do is the biggest thing. So it looks like we're hard contesting. Looks like it's going to be a clean 50-50 right off the rip here. We could win, we could lose. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab myself a sniper to do a lot of poke damage. They looks like they're landing on the left side. They're landing on top of each other. I should probably land a little closer. I'm actually not going to go for a sniper. I'm going to grab this bow here. I do have a P2020. See how lucky I get in terms of my shots. Pretty decent. I'm going to try to super zipline jump away, bouncing around. Unfortunately, I'm getting picked on by 2 people, and I go down. That's unfortunate, but it's okay. I did do quite a bit of damage. I wasn't expecting them to veer off on top of me, but I guess it is what it is. I should have looted a little bit more, and I should have landed on my teammates. That's my fault. That's my mistake, and that's okay. Hopefully my teammates can clutch it out. We can take a look at what they're doing. But we did manage to get a gun. I just wasn't expecting the other person to land on top of me as well. But, you know, hey, we live and learn, and those are the mistakes that we make. I honestly thought they were all going to land over on the other building on top of them, and I veered off purposely to grab a little bit extra loot. If I grabbed an R99, I probably would have done it. Let's see how much damage that we happen to do to this Valkyrie, just by curiosity. Solid amount of damage, not bad. At least good solid about 100 damage in. So we'll see what they do. They don't necessarily. I wish that they didn't have to go for my banner. It's perfectly fine. This is the only downside of recording this. So great bubble to retreat. Honestly, they should have banned me and call this a lost cause. But they do stick it out. If your teammate and something happens to them, you realistically should leave. I happen to get double dropped on there. So this is a really great tips and advice to really provide as well. If you happen to run into the unfortunate circumstance where you get dropped on and you do not create enough entry damage to save or rescue your teammate, leave your teammate. And then just play for the placement and try to recoup the loss. It's just very unfortunate that I got double landed on and I had myself a bow and a P2020. But sometimes you just those are the odds, and that is the RNG that you run into. The plus side for us, we get to spectate a full round and kind of see what everyone's doing. So the biggest thing as they continue to loot is, you know, you got to make sure that they're playing as efficiently as possible, because right now the zone is actually pulling away. This could be more or less a cage type ending because beacon is here, and it could pull towards market. So you kind of got a 50-50 pull here. I'm more banking that it might end around more the right side of the map rather than the left side. I don't think it's going to end anywhere here. So always kind of take your best guess, and that usually comes from time and playing. So the plus side here and why they landed here is that there's a very nice crafter. So that's a huge W. That's a big plus. That's a big positive for the team. But again, always make sure that one person is anchoring. One person right now, well, this is a really good play, making sure you're scanning beacon, nobody's looking out. And if this was higher tier lobby, somebody could roll up because they did take shots that, you know, hey, it could cost them, right? But at the same time, they did clutch it out. So if you choose to make that mistake, it's just always be aware of cause and effect. That if you're not playing together, nobody's anchoring, you have the possibility of another team running up. And are you playing together? The downside is that, of course, that you may not be as quick on looting and rotating. So there's this cause and effect that you should always be aware of, and the best tips I can probably provide. They are well coordinated, so it looks like they are definitely in Discord or communicating nonetheless, which is probably why whenever they veered off onto me, of why they were able to make a quick call and said this person's isolated and decide to push, which could have costed them at the same time, because if I had a better weapon, then that could have also costed them as well. Hot dropping on somebody who lands first is very, very, very risky, especially if they landed and they didn't get the loot or better gear to really engage on it. But it also needs for your teammate that if I was, because I was in a fight for a good solid moment there, that your teammates also need to be within running distance to be able to make a play. So other little tips and advice to provide. So right now they're still very much outside of zone. So if you're this team, always make sure that you're making your way in and that your team is aware of zone, because you don't want to be gate kept. Luckily they are running a Valkyrie, so the plus side of running a Valkyrie is that if you do get shot at, that you can decide to potentially make a play to use the Valkyrie to rotate out. So if you have a Valkyrie in your team and you're playing this edge of zone, that's most likely what the decision making could lead to. Also, when you're rotating, another tip is to make sure you knew how many teams are around. So not only just pay attention to who's dropping on you, but who is around the general vicinity. They might actually decide to Valkyrie here. They do. And there's that rotation that I was talking about. Sometimes it can be a little risky in terms of using the Valkyrie as a early rotational tool, because you're not going to have it for another rotation later. I always prefer to have the Valkyrie ult whenever you have no choice but you're kind of pinched at a wall, rather than using it. And then what if there's a team here and you need to get out of dodge and you get sandwiched because the zone is closing? So just make sure that you are processing that decision making, especially if you're playing Valkyrie. They do also have quite a bit of mobility. They have jump pad and they have Pathfinder. So this team is incredibly mobile. So a very strong team. But the problem this team is going to have is that they're going to lack the ability to anchor a building with like a Caustic, Watts. And you don't necessarily need those either. Gibraltar is a fantastic alternative to that as well. So this team is definitely taking the longer rotation to ensure they're safe. So using the jump pads is jump towers are very effective, the balloons, because at least they can do what just happened. Essentially just scout out an area, making sure that they're very aware of what's nearby. So there's only 10 teams right now. They just got to make sure to go to zone. If there is a team caught out here, I always call this if the team is here, you bully them off because you know that this team might be isolated. The concern here is that there was a battery left there. Sometimes if there's resources left behind, that's always technically a red flag to be very, very careful of. Means that a potential team could be nearby. Definitely check your angles, check your corners, check what's nearby. Call utility, call rotation of what's going to happen. So in a moment, they definitely have the ability to see that they're scanning there. Nobody has really strong poke, unfortunately. Everyone seems to be running a lot of close range. So within your squad, it's always good to have somebody who's running like 30-30, Sentinel, bow check, the whole 9 yards to be able to do some poke. So looking at their utility, nobody really has that strong poke damage. So make sure at least one person has it. If they don't, that you're willing to run up on a team a lot more aggressively. And right now this team has got KP for the most part. You know, a few of them are really rocking it, so they really don't have to push anything. They're waiting until that top 5 moment. So Zoctane's doing great work by anchoring for the team and just keeping an eye out, which is really, really solid. But it definitely raises a red flag in terms of the squad, knowing that no teams are nearby and the zone is pulling pretty hard towards the left, like we mentioned. So I did mention that it was either going to pull like around here, but I think this is going to be more or less a cage ending. This was a very, very risky play of hitting the beacon right out in the open, at least with not any teammates really scouting out. They seem to do this pretty often without having somebody either body block or watch, which is something a lot of players need to definitely learn. Is that if somebody's scanning, somebody needs to be nearby to help them reset potentially. You never know who's watching. That's the unfortunate part with the Battle Royale. So if somebody scans, it's a risky play, and sometimes it's okay just to kind of just play risky and just kind of play all out there. There's only 8 squads, so it's not like there's a whole lot of teams remaining left, but just some very big tips and advice and reminders. So teams are fighting. Usually when a team is fighting, that is a very big moment to rotate, not to hesitate. Right now they should be running towards zone and trying to take something. Take a position, take an angle. If shots already been taken place, you know that you have cover and that teams are definitely looking sporadically at where the shots are being taken place. So now is your moment to rotate, which the team is definitely doing. They kind of hesitated there for a moment, but nonetheless, they definitely rotated. So the problem with taking shots right out in the open right there and ADSing is that you don't have cover. You never know who's going to snipe back or take a shot. Always make sure before you're looking and taking shots, unless you're just a literal god in terms of aiming. Because I make this mistake too, I'm going to be honest, that you just want to make sure you have yourself cover before you just start peeking randomly. Because you just don't want to get beamed out in the open, because then it's going to make you look bad. This isn't a bad spot to hold, especially since they don't have an anchor legend. They just need to be ready to kind of be mobile on the fly. The zone is closing, so one person should be watching their back, and one person... Right now, everyone's looking on the north and east side, but realize how it took a little bit for somebody to kind of watch the back. Somebody should always be watching the back or the front and side, whichever angle. So if you're with your team, always make sure that you're watching all these various angles, and if you notice that you're watching the same angle as your team, go look at a different angle and then call for rotation if needed, even if it's just for a second. You never know who's going to run back. This is a very, very big play to make here. They're pretty much just going for the grief, essentially, knowing that a team is here. And for some reason, that team that you see rotating kind of gave up their positioning. If they were anchored here, which, there you go. I was going to say if they're anchored here, they would get 1 mag. And unfortunately, I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry. It's just kind of crazy how you call it right when it's going to happen. I was like, that team left. But if somebody was anchored there, then... as you see, like, that's going to happen. So the team up above, what they should do is port down and just go for this play. Right now, this Pathfinder's all by themselves, which is unfortunate. He's going to pretty much leave his team, but he's going to get absolutely beamed right in the process, and this team is going to drop down and just clean them up. It was a ballsy play, but they needed to kind of make a play altogether. The downside of taking the zip up without a lot of information is that that happens. Assume at this tier and this level that this is what teams are going to do. Unfortunately, I just don't know what else to tell you. That teams hunker down and they start playing weird and hiding in weird angles. Assume the worst whenever you're rotating. And it is very frustrating, but it's just kind of the game that we all play. And right now, since the other team that ran, this Ashe is really, really far ahead. They really should just continue to hunker down. I don't really know why they're leaving. They all have KP, and by the time they keep going, there's no reason to necessarily go anywhere, right? I know they see that as a potential third party, but even then, like, you get third place, you're going to get more points. You're going to get max KP anyways, but let's see how this plays out. They seem to be playing together. Remember my advice, if you're playing together, well, that's better than not playing together. So at least they're all running in. The downside is that they're kind of running in one at a time, which happens to the Ashe, and there we go. You know, sometimes you call these things, but the Wraith is really, really fast on the port. So kudos to the Wraith for being really quick on the port. The downside is wide swinging. When you don't have the information and you're doing it by yourself, it's going to cost you. This other team, while they have the knock, they need to res like right away. Like, it needed to happen right when the port happened, so then they don't get grief. The Caustic just needs to anchor, which is what he's doing. So kudos to the Caustic. Fantastic play on their part. But they're absolutely getting shredded now, and it's just kind of the unfortunate hand that they've been dealt. Now the downside is that if they stayed up there, they could guarantee third place, so there was no reason to necessarily push this, even though they saw that there was a lot of damage done. Great turn, fantastic aim by the Ashe, and if they're going to do one thing, it's going to anchor, so kudos for them on making a play. The Ashe is definitely wide swinging a little too hard, but plays the angle here on the rock, which is much smarter. She should have played that angle and rock a little bit right off the bat, but it's a mistake that those who have good aim will continue to make. The Wraith does go down, but remember, you got to play with your teammates, so that's why it's going to end up kind of turning for the worse. If they just kind of played a little more patiently and waited for the angle to really play out instead of just kind of YOLOing in, it definitely would play out more in their favor. So there is the Ashe ult to kind of rotate out because there is another team looking at them, but they need to go for this res immediately. Immediately. I mean, like today, not waiting until tomorrow. And now you're in this weird limbo, right? This weird limbo, it feels very uncomfortable. There's only one person remaining, but they're taking quite a bit of time. He needs to pop a syringe, and there's no reason to go for the finish or a med kit, anything, because if you're going for the finish, you're going for an armor swap. There was no armor swap to be had, and yeah, you're holding them out, but if you get the med kit off, at least you can share that downtime. Right now they have the third over there. Maybe the rest of the lobby is rats, but based on the number of people left in the lobby, that's not the case. I don't know why I don't know if they don't see them. This is crazy to me. Do they not? I mean, I see them in the corner of my eye. Keep in mind that it's right there. I'm just going crazy. Comment if you're going crazy. Well, are they just ignoring them? Wait, all three of them. Like, you guys see that, right? Am I? What? Okay, you know, it is what it is. You know, I respect it. I would be looking right over there for the horizon. So I guess the only tip I can provide, just as a reminder to everyone who's watching, make sure to check where because they could honestly get beamed. I don't know what to say. They just kind of letting them have it. You know that the team wasn't eliminated. I know. Don't get caught up in your loot. This is the biggest thing. Do not, I repeat, do not get caught up in your loot. Moving here. Do not do it. Follow me. Because then things like that happen. And now they're getting shot in the back, and this could really cost them because by the time they rotate, while they got that KP, imagine how long it might take to rotate now that they made noise and the team up above. You know that one spot I was telling them to hold before? Because they were going to get this, I'm confident, but based on the aim of this Ashe, this team was going to get this KP regardless. But the downside is that they were losing some positioning and some anchor time. But it is a play, and remember with the Battle Royale, there's not necessarily a wrong answer as long as they play together. So there's a few mistakes that could have turned the tide instantly for both teams there. It was that there was a lot of trading back and forth in terms of damage. Is that make sure not to wide swing too hard and play patiently. Play patiently and then heal up and reset before actually just rolling right in and then just getting eliminated and knocked, because it's only going to make it harder for your teammates to potentially make a play out of something. So we got top three. We know a team is all the way located on the south side of the map, located down here. We got one cage that's going to drop. This team might actually win. They were watching. They're pretty fast in it. There's a few things that they got to clean up, but overall this team does have some really strong synergy, and that should be praised. They're doing fantastic watching various angles, but realistically, they know where all three teams are, so where they're looking doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense right now. They should be looking forward. There's 3 squads remaining. You saw shots that took place over on Watchtower, and you know that teams are looking down below. Your teammates need to make sure they're calming and understanding how many people are left in the lobby. That's very, very important. So if they know where they're both at, they know that there's nobody behind them and that there's nobody really going to be sneaking up. Good for checking their angles, but just make sure you kind of math it out when you're in your head, because otherwise you could be focusing forward and doing potential damage, which you can see right now as an example. So holding height isn't bad for them right now. They need to wait until zone closes, kind of push last minute. They got some barrels down below. Their Caustic's doing a fantastic job of anchoring. So they just got to play patient at this point. Wait for the zone to pull. It's going to pull towards that building, but they don't necessarily want to drop down right away, just in case the other team across the way makes a play. But they definitely have some space down here. The Wraith, it's okay for the Ashe and the Wraith to kind of play forward because they have an out. And they can make a potential play and kind of play at various angles. Caustic's doing a fantastic job of anchoring, though. The problem that we see what the Ashe is doing is that she is wide peeking a little too hard here. And unless she feels very confident with her shot, which she clearly had before, is that she could get wide swung and potentially just lasered, and if they notice that the 2 teammates are above, they might actually be crazy and pull it out. But they are held up in the building. There's no reason for them to leave, so you're going to see that this team is going to play very patient and not peek at all. So it's going to come down to zone, and it's going to come down to the area. Realistically, they should probably play more to the left. I think there's a little bit more geometry that's going to be better for them, and luckily they managed to catch them out looking at the other direction. So quite a bit of damage, putting a lot of pressure, but they got to watch their angles here. Just as we see here with the Ashe taking quite a bit of damage, unfortunately. They're making a pretty aggressive play already, and it's not a bad play. The downside is that the other team could definitely roll up. So this is definitely getting a little greedy, but it's not necessarily a bad play because it looks like he definitely had the jump on the opponent there. Let's take a look at what the teammates are doing, and the teammates should definitely be more towards the Ashe, giving the Ashe time to reset. But unfortunately, we see them kind of scramble. They need to either hold building, but they keep wide swinging by themselves, and that's kind of the problem. And they're kind of doing their 1v1s rather than kind of going together. And it's not a bad thing. Just make sure you know that you're close to your teammates and that they can make a play with you. And I'm not telling everybody who's watching, I'm not telling you not to play aggressively. It's just that if you gamble with a thought of like, oh well, I melee my shot, so you're not confident in your shot, just make sure you know what you're gambling with. I know I make this mistake a lot personally, so I'm going to talk from personal experience that I do this a lot. I will wide swing and I will push a team because I'm confident I can do a lot of damage, but I will retreat to my teammates as fast as possible. So what you see happening here is that they're not paying attention to the team up top. If I was a team up top, I would be making a very aggressive play to push them all down below. And they're giving up their positioning and their height. The team down below, this team could grief them, which is what we just saw happen with the Ashe. Now we got a 1v1 here. They're taking a little bit of damage, and if they go out to zone, they could be griefing their own game. So why go for second place when you can go for a potential first? So he's getting caught out in a bat. Luckily gets his bat off. Let's see if he's managed to land his shots. They might need to go for a res as fast as possible if the Caustic is able to anchor, which it looks like he is able to. The other team really should have pushed way sooner. Should have pushed way sooner. And the person bowing in the back is pretty much throwing their game. Yes, they have poke damage, but the poke damage is done. This last person is nowhere near their team. And that's going to cost them the game, unfortunately. The team up above should have won this, without a shadow of a doubt, but they did not because the person is still messing around playing Legolas with the bow, unfortunately. And that's just detrimental. But they gave him the ability to reset here, and he might be able to clutch this out. He might crumble under pressure, but he manages to clutch it out. And this team is going, I mean, guaranteed at this point. I think they're going to win it. They pretty much have them. They're running in through gas, and here is the dub. So the team up above, listen, if you got range, remember when to know when to push in versus when not to push in. That's my biggest advice. Congrats on the win for this team for, you know, playing aggressively and doing what they needed to do. All right, everybody, let's go into the next round. This next round is actually one that we're going to wrap up on. But yeah, hopefully you enjoy the series. Don't forget to leave a like. Okay, this is round 2. I feel really bad because our boy is Diamond 1. So if this game turns out to be just a dub of a game, that's great. I'm going to pass it to them and see what they do so I don't feel guilty about either dropping hot or dropping safe. So let's just see how this gameplay actually plays out. So it looks like they're actually dropping pretty hot. Map room is actually a very smart strat, especially if we don't have a scan legend, which we don't. It's very smart so that you know where the zone is going to go or whether teams are nearby or not. Map room is a very smart play, but the downside is that it can be pretty hot, which is oddly right now not the case. So sometimes map room is hot, sometimes it's not, but it's a very great place to play. So remember your loot, try not to split it with your teammates. So what I'm going to do, if they're going to take the inside of the building, I'm going to take the outside of the building. I got crafter on the outside, so maybe I'll craft myself a flatline or a longbow like we did earlier. Either way, it works. We'll just have to make a play and then see what happens with it. But as long as you kind of know your loot pattern, you will find guns that are within the general vicinity of what you feel comfortable with. So let's go ahead and craft a flatline. So we have that in our inventory. And I feel really guilty if we play poorly. And this is kind of the hard part about spectating, because I wouldn't mind losing, but at the same time I don't want to grief somebody else's game. So that's kind of a hard situation to be in. Let's see where he's going to scan. Okay, we do. Wow, caustic treatment is very, very hot. Definitely an opportunity to go push there, but we also have a team that's located near repulsor that can also engage within us. So we just have to be pretty smart and be very careful. So I'm going to go to grab this, and I'm going to craft a few batteries so I can get in the fight. Alternator flatline is a pretty decent loadout. No complaints there. I wouldn't mind a little bit more mid-range to long range, but it's not bad nonetheless. I'm going to craft 3 batteries, and I'm going to be good to go to help my teammates. Unless I get shot at right now, which is definitely a viable thing considering how close they were. And then I'll just anchor for the team, and I'm just been keeping a pretty close eye on what's going on over here. Oh, there's a 3x. I'll let them capitalize on the loot, and I'll just kind of grab whatever is left over. I guess that kind of works. Actually, let's grab the sentinel. We're going to drop the light ammo, and we're going to be good to go. So the reason why I want to have at least a decent poke weapon, and they are looking over here, so I'm going to take a shot at the Gibby. His arm shield is gone, which is good, but he also had blue armor, so I'm just going to hold for a second, just anchor a little bit, see if we can make a play off this. If not, teammates seem like they want to play very, very passive, which is not a bad thing either. But at the same time, I want to make sure my hitbox is small so I don't get griefed too hard, so I'm going to be right here. Let's take a look where they're at on the map. So repulsor, caustic treatment still has 2 teams located. Over in Gaunt, looks like there's 3 teams. Capacitor is fighting pretty hard, so repulsor is an isolated fight. I would recommend to our team that we push this if we have the ability. And what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to wide swing on the left of this. I'm going to see what my teammates are doing and see if they are willing to make a play. But I'm trying to find at least an angle. If I overextend on this, I'm Watson, so I don't really have an out. Watson being your aggressor is not always the best thing, but it can be a good thing. So I'm just trying to see if I can catch them out. Let's see if they if they want to make a play. They seem like they want to anchor, which is a little rough on my part because I really, really want to push. But I also don't want to grief their game. I get how they're playing patiently. So I did hit one for 54, so I did a little bit of damage. So I'm going to wide swing on this, try to find a different angle to help out my teammates here. I'm going to move up. I'm going to put a preemptive fence just in case I get pushed. If I get pushed, at least I have a fallback plan. So I'm going to move up here, have the angle here, and miss my shot. That's unfortunate. Otherwise, it might have been a decent play. We have horizon, so what we need to do is take a roof, but now they have roof, so I'm going to back up just a little bit, anchor here. I have no way to get up on the roof, so even if I were to get a knock or do damage, I have no way to get up there. I'm relying on my horizon to get me up there, but at least I can try to create some entry damage if that's viable and possible to do. Get a little bit of another crack here. What I'm going to do, since they seem to want to hold here, I'll put a gen here for them. It's not ideal, but at least I stopped those nades right there, and at least I can do a little bit of damage back and hold for a second, give them a little bit of something, but nonetheless, this is not looking good for us, to be honest. If I was being honest, this would be a play that they have height. So 112 in that individual, but I need the horizon to be very confident in play. If I was on comms, which I'm not at the moment, I'm really relying on them to kind of pull it together. I'm doing damage, but the horizon has to queue up. This is the only way we're going to get up. So I can do as much damage as I want, but they have cells and they have reset potential here, and we're literally sitting ducks. Caustic treatment team, if they wanted to, they can roll up on us at any second now. Caustic made his hitbox a little bit too large. I got to be careful. I'm going to go right back down and top off here. I'm going to use my syringe just to top off, and then we'll get right back in the engagement here. Over half the lobby has gotten eliminated so far, which is pretty interesting. So I did crack the one on the right. If you were Horizon or you're playing an aggressive Legend, that would be the perfect time. I'm going to back up because it seems like your teammates want to back up. Respectable, I get it, fine. Not a problem. I'm just here to vibe. I'm just your best Watson friend. So I got one flush. So a lot of damage there, not too bad. I'm going to slow heal this up. I have batteries, but there's no reason because I don't think our team really wants to aggress. They really want to use this map room really a lot. But my gosh, I mean, there's not much more I could do, unfortunately, in that scenario. Even if I try to go all the way around and be going around by myself, just one of those unfortunate scenarios. Maybe they actually want to make a play now. Zone is closing, and we'll see if we can make a potential play. I know this was spectating diamond lobbies. I might put this round as my last round instead, just to kind of showcase what happens when you get stuck with a team. And I mean, nonetheless, I'm minimizing the loss, so it's not the end of the world because I'm still only minus 38. We're top 10. Even if we get top 5, it pretty much breaks even if I were to get 1 kill. It's not the end of the world. I didn't sell up. Our teammate is really far behind, and I was just kind of playing with the caustic here, but our horizon is very, very far. So the downside of what you're seeing in the map, even if I land on my shots and stuff, I have this team to worry about, and I have this team to worry about. When we move in, it's going to be very difficult for us to really get out of a pinch. We need to cross and hope that this team doesn't... They didn't land a lot of shots, but we need to pray that they're not going to land a lot of them. And that, I'm going to try to do a crossfire here and see if I can land some damage so the horizon doesn't get dumpstered completely, but she seemed like she was fine, so let's just rotate. And this is one of those patience things, you know, like we're just solo queuing. This isn't that bad. Maybe I should play more of an aggressive legend, but I was just decided to play anchor for the team and let somebody else play aggressive, so then I don't feel guilty about throwing games or not throwing them, because that was up to the horizon to kind of make a play there. If they don't want to make a play, it's fine. I mean, listen, we're still top 10. We did a lot of damage. Technically, I didn't comment either, so it is what it is. But we do have a bit of a pinch here coming up because the team on diving board wants to come into market and team on caustic treatment wants to move up too. So if we engage, we need to be really quick, or we need to rotate, and there it is. That what I mentioned, this caustic might go down. I'm gonna put a gen to cover for him. I'm gonna cover his crossfire here. I'm gonna hold this angle for him, but remember, zone is right behind us, and I have to cross an open field. If I cross an open field, I'm more likely to die. So I'm gonna wait for him to heal up, and once he moves with me, we'll move confidently together. So let's do that. Let's move up because we have no other choice. This is our only option unless they want to rotate around. The horizon looks like she wants to rotate around, so we're going to make that as a call. This is actually, while we're spectating diamond lobbies, this is actually a really great way, like a guide on like changing momentum with your teammates. Like you just have to be very spatially aware of what your teammates are doing. I don't have an amazing amount of syringes, but listen, we could have just pushed forward. They were fighting. That's not a bad thing, but if they want to play super passive, then I guess we'll play super passive. You just sometimes have to respect it, because honestly, I can probably get my KP and get a kill and move in and just have myself a really great game. But sometimes it just doesn't really work out that way, and that's okay. There's no reason to be ever stressed about it. It's just, you know, you're here to vibe, have a good time, and it teaches you a lot. It teaches you about being spatially aware with your teammates, so it's not a downside to it at all, really. It's all positive. So we'll rotate, but the downside is if diving board decided to rotate here, we're also going to get gated here, but sometimes you just have to make a choice, and sometimes the choice isn't always clear, and sometimes the choice that's in front of you doesn't seem like the best one always. Don't forget, if you enjoy the series, don't forget to leave a like. This is something new. Kind of figured it might be a lot more fun to kind of do more commentaries like this. Kind of just chilling with teammates, having a good time, you know. What's interesting is that we're top 9. I wonder if we actually, because it's very possible we could actually get a dub this way, you know? It's very, very possible. You've seen it happen many, many times because placement actually has a lot of points. It looks like they want to keep rotating in the back. I'll respect it. I'm not just going to run in like a maniac. I'm also Watson, so I have to kind of follow what the team is doing. I mean, what I could do is also ping aggressively, but I'm really leaving it up to my teammates to succeed. I'm gonna do damage. I'm gonna anchor, but I also want to spectate, which I think I'm probably going to have to do next round instead. Can't go wrong with too many accelerants. I need sniper ammo, but I don't have any, so I'm just going to keep looking. Poke damage definitely came in handy for that last fight. And we'll see how we can make it actually work. So they're gassing up that building, but that's a little confusing because that building isn't in. So I'm not really sure what their plan is, per se. But all I can do is just encourage people the best I can. So I'm just going to keep moving forward in the hopes that they move forward with me. And then we'll see what they do. Realistically, when we were caustic, bunker's not a bad play. At least we have all our backs closed and we can really capitalize on having that caustic. So that's always a plus. Doesn't mean it's always the right play, but it's an option. So it looks like they pinged up top. Oh, okay, it looks like one team is flying in. There might be a team already in bunker. There's 9 squads, so there's a very, very high likelihood. So I'm going to do them to fence this off. I'm going to hold for a second. Actually, I'm going to look inside. I'm going to do a little quick peek and see what this looks like in here. There's plenty of batteries, so I'm going to drop actually cells. Don't need all these cells. And we can hunker down on the opposite end as well. So there's definitely a plus side to this. I'm going to put Jen over here. Hopefully a team doesn't run up at the same time. That would be very unfortunate. I'm going to grab this sniper ammo because I do need it. I'm going to drop my thermite. Probably not the play. I need to run grenades more, but I'm not the best player in the world, right? So it looks like they're getting really confident, so I'm glad I grabbed that sniper ammo. So it looks like they're fighting around Gold Town right here. I'm going to go and fence our back as well. Put a double thing there just in case. And there we go. That looks very nice. So it looks like they're pinging on the left side, so we'll take a look over there. I noticed they're looking on the south side that way, so that's not bad. I'm going to drop a little bit of heavy, so I have extra here. I want to be careful to keep my hitbox as small as humanly possible. Make sure that I'm not getting caught out of position. One is taking the zip. They're flying over. I wonder if I can land this shot, because they're going to try to fly over to us. That was a really horrible shot. That's fine. Better shot, but still didn't lead far enough. So the team is focusing on the north side and really engaged on that, so I wasn't paying attention to that. So we're going to move up on this to help them out. So she needs to be very careful. Now she decides to be very aggressive, and there's her KP, so top 7, not bad. But she needs to watch her back from this way because I know there was a team on the left side. I'll move up, try to play here with her. I'll put a fence down preemptively. I'm not going to wide swing. I'm going to hold for a second. I see a Horizon Q that has gone up, so I'm going to wait for 1 second. I might push it, but I am Watson, so I have to be very careful. My teammates are kind of backing up. Those are my outs. I do want to play this aggressively, though. I'm not going to lie. We have a barrel here. Watch our back for just a second. So crack, 90 in. Another team in the back. So yeah, I'm down. Let's make a play. Let's make a push. Let's go right underneath. Okay, well let's not go underneath. What do you guys want to do? We need to go underneath. This would be a nice little spot to live for just the time being. Not an awful spot. We could queue up on this team right up above as an option. But hunkering down is our strength as a comp. Horizon just needs to kind of decide if she wants to make a play. Here's a team right behind. Destroyed that poor guy right there. That's perfectly fine. Perfect. So we're going to put a gen down. And we're just going to hold for a second and just kind of wait. Oh, and see who's shooting us from a distance. I'm going to pull out my sentinel. See if I can do a little bit of burst damage here. 70, not bad. Might deter him from pushing right out in the open. There is the Ashholt. Might run into the other team. You better look at your back, buddy, because they're going to be right there. Got to watch out for that. And they do. They get shot. And the Horizon is for some reason fighting all the way in the south side. I get stuck. So what I'm going to do once I get this crack, I'm going to switch armors and I'm good to go for a second. I'm getting shot in the back. That's unfortunate. So I'm going to bat and move forward. I'm going to bunny hop on this side. And I'm just going to hold for the team here for just 1 second. I'm just going to anchor. Pathy's going to look at me here. He's going to get absolutely shredded. I'm going to push him. It's probably not the play, but I'm going to finish him off. There it is. And I go down. And there we go. That's not bad. I don't know why the Horizon, the biggest thing is just stay with your team. The Horizon wasn't making plays early on, and that's perfectly fine. But realistically should have made one there. What was our placement? 5th place. That's not bad with 1 KP. We went up points, technically. We technically went up, you know, like I said, you know, and just got to stay calm within the moment. I think the Horizon stayed with us. We could have probably fought off quite a bit of the teams and relied on hunkering down. So let's just watch the remainder of the match. This team definitely has this. They don't want to get too aggressive, though. Let the team just take the zone damage and just hold them out, which is what they're doing. They're doing a great job at it. The Horizon definitely has their Q, definitely has height, but needs to be careful not to give up the positioning too much. They do see that they have various angles, and it's just going to be punishing them. But Zone 3 hurts quite a bit. So as long as they keep focus firing, of course you got to land your shots too. One of them is going to rotate up. He's right behind that individual. He's got to, hopefully they're calming that information. And there goes another knock, and they have a 3v1, but they got to watch out for the arc star in the back. Can't stay into zone. This is Zone 3. If they get too greedy with this is the downside. This is what, I know KP is important, but ladies and gentlemen, you have to play extremely patient still. Let the zone do the work that it's going to do and hold out, because you never know when there's going to be a team right in front of you. So they are at least pinging where they're at. Just don't get greedy. There's no reason to get greedy. The minute you get greedy, another team can roll up, because this is, you know, a top 3 situation. And they do have the other team located there, but they do need to get in. So when they look at their utility, what do they have? They have Ashport, which they definitely should utilize to push forward in, but they need to start working their way in now. So as soon as they're able to work their way in, this is going to be the best opportunity not to get greedy with this guy. It's one person, so I never, you know, there's no reason to get too greedy. But if this person drops by themselves, imagine if they got one clipped. If they got one mag, which lucky they didn't, which is a blessing. But imagine if they did and the other team decided to push forward. They might actually be facing another rat here. Because that other person was right out in the open, which is not necessarily the smartest play that you want to make. But it kind of is what it is. So they're rolling up. The other team realistically should just hold zone if they want to win and just kind of play it out to the end. But I think it's a rat. And so this round is over, and let's get into the next one. This one, actually, we'll wrap up here. I'm going to use this as the end of the video because I want to spectate a lobby earlier. I wasn't expecting the team to last as long, but I still think that it's educational and that it's helpful. And we had a really good time, and hopefully you guys did as well. Hopefully you guys enjoy the series. Don't forget to leave a like if you want to see more of this. I kind of want to do a part 2. But anyways, thank you guys so much again, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.